Thank you so much. And I always like to say Frank is far better looking than I am, so you're going to be stuck with brains and not beauty today. But we're very fortunate to work with Frank. Frank is an exceptional innovator. He has a long history in working in adult education all across the United States, and he built this organization from the ground up. It's called Advance. And Advance is a continuing ed institution or adjacent institution to Lake Tahoe Community College. And Lake Tahoe Community College, like many colleges in the California community college system, have always sort of have tried to do CPL. But if we go to the next slide, it's always sort of been the comfortable stuff. So it's been CLEP exams and advanced placement, challenge exams approach, and then those military crosswalks. These are sort of well understood, but Frank likes to call them sort of they're the low hanging fruit. They're the bottom of the tree. And when you get into portfolio in particular, it's hard. In fact, California is an interesting jurisdiction. They've allocated about $500 million to understanding and solving for credit for prior learning. The statistics in California are wild. Something about 8 million people who have some college education but no credential to show for it. That number across the United States is, almost 40 million people now. So the number of skills that are going unaccounted for effectively in the marketplace is massive. It creates all sorts of problems. Most notably is people can't get promoted because they don't have a credential to ascertain the skills and the competencies. And so therefore adults get left behind. There's no pathways for them to grow their careers, let alone the ones who didn't go to college at all. They've been working for 15 years, guaranteed they have competency, and yet they're not able to show their credential. So if we go to the next slide, Frank, Frank spent about 18 months. He tells me he spoke to close to 50 or 55 different partners, vendors, technology providers, and what he found with what we offer, and I always prefer when he talks about it because this just feels like I'm bragging, but what he said is it gives us an opportunity to understand where faculty comes from. Oftentimes in union environments, they have strict understanding on what their job is. And so oftentimes when faculty say, hey, it's not my job to assess CPL, they're not wrong. And so that is a reality that just needs to be understood and worked around. So when we come at it from this sort of idea of infrastructure, and this has come up now a few times in the last hour, this conversation about translation, this interpretation, how does faculty and the PSI think about it? How do employers think about it? How do students think about it? Just even that one nuance, faculty and admin inside an institution might look at CPL in slightly different language, slightly different terms. And so Frank did the work of building the board and the governance component to give Advance that authority to ultimately run CPL on behalf of Lake Tahoe Community College. And he built this navigator team. And the navigator, the lead navigator, her name is Meredith. We've actually named her Meredith inside of our organization too, because she represents such a critical role. The navigator who then takes that person that comes to the school and says, I'd like to get credit for all this time that I spent in restaurants and hospitality, but now I want to go into IT customer support. I would like credit for that workplace experience. And so Meredith, this person Meredith, who is, again, as I said, our sort of our halo superwoman in our company as a role for what the navigator does, takes that and then has to interpret that person's skills, experience, etc., and turn them into a pathway. And without technology, it becomes very, very difficult to do it at scale. You can do it one by one, but with us, she's able to manage hundreds of these cases on any given, call it a month even. So if we go forward to the next slide. It's one workflow, every single CPL method. So whether you're doing advanced placement or challenge, ultimately what happens is every single course is uploaded into the Validate system. And the student or the candidate, they come in and they are immediately asked sort of, give us everything about you, give us your resume, give us your prior experience, give us all the things that you want to give us using some advanced sort of, we're very careful on how we use AI in the platform. We believe AI has uses, but we also believe AI is often too often just the answer to too many people's questions, and we actually think that's unethical and incorrect. So we have a very distinct definition on ethical AI for us, but we do use AI to better understand that person and then start mapping them to potential pathways. Meredith comes in at that learner review case where and she actually comes in at step 2 and at step 4 to better understand that person and which pathway to send them down. The faculty assessment no longer is somebody coming with a 90-page binder of portfolio artifacts. They're coming with an indexed and sort of collated binder of evidence that's specifically related to student learning objectives in every course outline. And yes, as you said, while an SLO isn't competency in the workplace for the institution, it is their currency, and so they are able to then make a credit determination on the skills and competency evidence that a student or a candidate uploads into Validate, and then therefore credit is awarded. Go to the next slide, and I'll be mindful that I've got 4 minutes left. And so this started with forestry. It's really interesting. In California, there are any number of predominantly men who are incarcerated who fight fires on behalf of the state. They're paid a couple of dollars a day to do so. When they leave and they've paid their dues to society, they don't have a credential and they can't get jobs in forestry, logging, firefighting. And yet they are expert at it. They've done it for years. They literally put their lives on the line while paying their dues as incarcerated individuals. But when they come back into society, they're not able to do anything. And this is actually where our project kicked off with Frank, was trying to find better pathways for people who don't have credit but have clearly tons of experience. It then evolved into a broader conservation application. And so that's where this whole thing started. They are now doing not just sort of what they call CTE courses, career technical education courses in the United States. Frank has put through academic courses as well, sociology, speech pathology. They're doing math, they're doing critical thinking sorts of applications on this. And so we're now getting into a place where portfolio is happening in literally a matter of days at what used to take months. And that articulation is taking place. The technology does the API bit and talks to all the systems, but really what's happening is the institution has decided CPL is a function. There's a funding formula coming, which also gives them incentive to do that. They are already ingesting students from outside their catchment area because there are students all across the state of California who want to be able to access this, but their home colleges can't do it. It's the infrastructure that's allowing them to do it. If we go to the next slide. So even faculty appreciated that the old way wasn't going to do it. Well, of course they appreciated that. It's time consuming and cumbersome, and it's not their job. They're not paid to do it. Is a fun story. I don't know if Frank would have told the story, but I will. Oh, actually, there it is. It's in step 3. Of course, he would have told the story. So one of the things that Frank did is he got faculty buy-in by using the process on faculty themselves. Think foreign trained workers who have great expertise or skill or credentials, masters and PhDs in other countries, come to California, they want to teach, they start at the lowest part of the wage band. Or there's others who, for whatever reason, are at the lower part of the wage band, and he put faculty through the process. He actually increased their pay. Social contract, hey, look at how much this helped you. We never want to hear you say you can't do this as part of your job, because we have to help these 8 million people who are in our state achieve a better outcome for themselves. So he got that social contract, that buy-in, he got it established, and faculty are actually regularly coming to him, asking him, hey, we heard you did this for a few of our colleagues, can you also do it for us? And that horse trading continues to happen. We can go to the next slide. And kind of already mentioned this, but students from outside the LTCC district are coming to the college. We are now we're speaking at the state level with the chancellor's office on what is the effective way to roll out a statewide CPL system. The achievements that Lake Tahoe has achieved, and they're unparalleled across the state of California. And as I mentioned before, their foresight going back to 2018, where they first passed legislation around CPL and credit for prior learning in the state legislature, and now then allocating about $500 million, as I mentioned, US, to figuring out credit for prior learning. what Lake Tahoe and Advance have done together and what we've been able to do with them is now sort of slowly but surely rising as a bit of a gold standard for that state. It's early days, no guarantee on whether or not ultimately we are going to be a part of the grand scheme, but certainly what Advance has done is teaching the state a lot of lessons. We can go next slide and then I'll wrap up here quickly. Governance, it's people, process, technology, right? It's if anybody who's ever done change management or transformation, you know it always comes down to those things. And it's the people, process, technology, getting governance buy-in, getting the buy-in that CPL is not just a nice thing to do. It's not just it's the right thing to do. It's a valuable thing to do. Creating enrollment where enrollment didn't exist. The enrollment cliff is real. This is a bit crude and a bit tongue in cheek, but I often like to say North Americans, we don't love unprotected sex. We're not having enough kids. And so what's happening is that the enrollment cliff, the future 18-year-olds don't exist. They exist in far less capacity and scale than they used to, which means that we're going to have a lot of foreign trained people come to North America. We are going to have a lot of people who are going to come back to institutions because things like AI are displacing traditional jobs, and they're going to want new credential and new recognition. And so these things are happening. And so having that governance in place, that this is a valuable thing to do, and then building the faculty up, and then using technology like Validate to sort of build out the infrastructure to make it as efficient and effective and legally defensible is a phrase we use often, legally defensible assessment outcomes. And so all of this together creates infrastructure. There are other slides, but I'm noting that I'm a couple minutes over already. So Andy, I'll take your guidance if you'd like. I can zoom through, or if there are any questions, also happy to take them.
You've got a couple more minutes, yeah? Not until
25
past.
Well, let's keep an eye for raised hands, but if you'd like, we can go to the next slide and we can see what happens. And we can actually skip right through that one. There you go. We're done. That worked out well.
Oh, amazing job, Jamo. Brilliant.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
And
it's exciting stuff. It's as we go forward from a technology perspective, which I'll speak to, and Frank is really leading a lot of this as he drives us to better understand the process. We'll start using things like voice-based AI to help in the ingestion of the student, of the candidate, to sort of take away some of the burden on that navigator, who's an administrator. And then I look at Efwa, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, but faculty is doing the assessments. The technology is helping sort of do the pre-assessment. We're very careful with our use and our language around AI, but AI will produce some probability scores based on evidence that's submitted that allows for faculty to ultimately, human in the loop is core and central to our AI strategy. Faculty still does the assessments. It is still on faculty to do the assessments. That is ultimately their function, but it is a lot of work if it's not done in the kind of streamlined way that we've been able to bring to the table.
I just put some from one of your previous slides. Every stakeholder comes out ahead. The employer, the employee, the college, the credential, I would add, and also society.
Society, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
the economy.
Yeah,
everything.
You think about the business case of this, right? Like employers have retention problems, and if they can, being a little bit cheeky, if they can dangle the opportunity for a college credential for somebody who doesn't have it and say, but you can stick around with us, we'll help enable this for you. That's huge for retention. Again, those same skills shortages and enrollment cliffs. This is a demographic problem. But then you think about what happens to that person who earns an extra $1 and pays an extra 34 cents of tax. They're now contributing to society just through earning a higher income, let alone having a higher income that they can maybe charitably donate to the things that they care about, the causes like everything gets better when good people are able to have dignified jobs and earn better incomes. And this is why we love this gathering, and why this gathering is so important is, society gets better even if we just simplify it to those bare bones economic metrics. But you think about the fulfillment that people feel, their engagement in society, civil society, social cohesion, Canada's
mental health.
Yeah, Canada's having this really, really unfortunate time around the narrative of immigration. there's this joke in Ontario that you can get higher quality healthcare in the backseat of an Uber than you might in a hospital, because there's so many people who are just they're good people not allocated to the jobs that they could or should be. You want to have a GDP and productivity conversation. Imagine if we had all the right people in all the right jobs. We would not be having a productivity conversation. But what's happening on the other side of that is that engineer, that doctor, that physicist, that veterinarian who's driving that Uber or serving that coffee, their engagement with the country is also not as strong. Social cohesion becomes a problem. That person might become a little bit angrier at their new home country because they left their old home country to come to this land of opportunity and possibility. And we haven't figured out how to translate them into society. So exactly, you're absolutely right. Society, it's a big, big win to do this right. To get this right is a massive, it's a scale changer for
Yeah.
where we can go as a country.
Thank you so much for that. I'll definitely be in touch. We need to hear more from you in more depth.
Thank you so
But
much.